Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 49 with the wonderful Ilsa Comte Adair, Rediscover Your Entrepreneurial Sovereignty. A bit about Ilsa because she's going to do most of the talking today. One of her mottos is grow and scale your business in a way that totally honors you, your nervous system, and your unique rhythm. This is something that I love so much because a few years ago, I would think that having a business is awful. It's draining. Yes, you may have money. However, you are going to have a tough life. Ilsa is a licensed psychotherapist, nervous system regulation and expansion expert, and business mentor for soulful entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Part of Ilsa's work is to support you in healing your receiving wounds and help you succeed with ease. Ilsa, what a pleasure to have you here with us. Welcome.
Thank you. That was a wonderful, I might have to listen to this introduction and use it myself. I thought that was beautifully said.
Your work is truly amazing. So I got to read a bit of your bio from Facebook, even from LinkedIn, and I'm truly impressed, to be honest, by your live sessions on Facebook. This is how I got in touch with your amazing work. What truly got me very drawn to you was that you are such a sweet, kind person as you talk with so much ease, yet you got so much power in your message because I heard you say, okay, you need to be in charge of who you are on everything that is regarding to your activity. You called the shots and you said it. These weren't the exact words. You said it with so much power that I got really inspired. I think this was a few months ago. Can you please share with us, Ilsa, how did you get to create this amazing Sovereign Entrepreneur Academy? What is your story?
For sure. Yeah, I think, so I started out almost 20 years ago as a licensed psychotherapist working in agency with the state. And I was kind of disgusted at how much we as social workers worked for so little money and how much burnout there was in my field. And to some degree, there wasn't enough healing happening for the clients with the amount of work. And so I went out on my own and started and opened a private practice. And then I realized that I had left one trap or one jail cell for another because I was working a lot more than before. I had all sorts of stuff coming up. And this is, in some way, I like to say that starting your own business is a crucible for healing. It's like a spiritual awakening, like all your shit comes up, like all your stuff that you didn't even know was there comes up around visibility, around rejection, around asking to be paid well for what you do. Like all of that we take for granted, but it's actually really scary. And for a lot of us who are spiritual, who are soulful, there is something that can be very scary. And I know your podcast is all around fear. There's something that can be really scary about bringing your gifts, your soul craft out into the world. Because it's one thing to just sell something. If you're rejected, they just don't want your thing. But when you're bringing your full self-expression, your own sacred gifts into the world, and you are either not reaching as many people as you want, or you're getting maybe criticized, or people are not understanding, or they're not buying, that can be very threatening to our sense of self. So I started out in this because I went into private practice and I realized how much harder it was than I expected it to be, how I was working so hard, not making the money I wanted to make, how essentially I was getting burned out and overwhelmed, but it didn't really have much to show for it. And so for me, business essentially became both a way to make money, but also a way to grow and to notice all the places where I was contracted, all the places where I had woundings in me that were keeping me from becoming really visible, from boldly expressing who I was, from asking for what I needed, and all these different things. So essentially, like, the Sovereign Entrepreneur Academy for me came from a marriage of two things. It came from a marriage of strategy, because as I started growing my own therapy practice, I started taking marketing courses and sales courses to try to, grow my business, and learning all the tricks and all the stuff. And then it came from the nervous system work, or the expansion work, or the energetic work. So strategy with energy, for me, these two things, when you marry them, they create magic. Or the other way I talk about it is expression, how we express ourselves, how we get visible with expansion. When you marry these two things, you get magic. And so that's, for me, that's the work, is finding that balance, both where we become a true transformational leader in the world, but we do that without abandoning ourselves. We do that without dishonoring ourselves. We do that without forgetting why we started this damn thing to begin with. We started, for most of us, we went into business because we wanted more ease, more joy, more freedom. We wanted to have a strong impact on the world. So that's not just a destination. That has to be the whole journey, essentially. So that's where it came from marrying these two things, the energetic with the strategy, the self-expression with the expansion work, and essentially really doing our soul's work from a place of absolute alignment and ease, and making sure that it's both a transformation for our clients, but it's a transformational journey for ourselves as well.
Wow. This is quite a story, Ilsa. I love it how you put it, marrying strategy and energy. And I have to fully agree, because you cannot have one without the other. It's like you cannot fully function unless you get everything out. And this is such a great metaphor, a spiritual awakening when you start your own business, because everything, you get pushed on all your buttons, you get taken to the edges of your patience, of your comfort zone.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, Ilsa, when you talk about alchemy, because this is something that you bring up quite a bit, and this term fascinates me, and I'm sure that our audience can relate. How do you see it mingling with business and spirituality?
You mean alchemy? Like, for me, alchemy is the idea of turning something that's hard or dark into something that's open and that is flowing and that is bright. And so, for me, like, alchemy is spirituality. It is essentially what we're here from a individual standpoint. It is what we're all doing in our own journey of spiritual awakening. We are going from a place of contraction, a place of doubt, a place of conditioning, to a place of openness, to a place of feeling bright, of feeling certain. There's a sort of certainty with alchemy where we're certain of ourselves, we're certain of our gifts. And in terms of business, it's a little bit the same thing. I work with a lot of new entrepreneurs. I work with a lot of healers, a lot of practitioners, and there's always a sense of doubt at first, not being quite clear how to express what it is that we do, not being quite clear whether or not we're unique, not being quite clear whether or not people are going to want what they have, and having doubt around all of that. And part of the alchemy for me, that's the nervous system being in contraction. That's the nervous system being deregulation. And what happens is, if they try to really do marketing or do the strategy or even come up with a business model from that place of contraction, what they'll get is more deregulation, more contraction. So I like to say, like cats will never give birth to a dog. Like you essentially, you create what you are. So for me, if you're trying to create or grow your business from a place of deregulation, from a place of contraction, essentially what you create, the ripples you create, actually create more contraction and more deregulation. So for me, becoming sovereign, getting into that place of expansion is a foundational piece to growing your business. And there's both a scientific aspect to that, like just the way nervous systems are a little bit like strings or tuning forks. They vibrate at the same frequency. Like we have mirror neurons as human beings. So we start to match each other. So if I'm trying to sell or I'm trying to market and I'm contracted and I'm in fear, then what's going to happen is the person who's across from me is going to start sensing that something is off, and their nervous system is going to start shutting down and becoming contracted. And then the opportunity of transformation, of getting into possibilities, of making a sale drops down significantly at that point. Our ability to impact drops down significantly. So from a business standpoint, for me, alchemy is about going from contraction to expansion and learning how to be in that regulated and expanded state and grow our business from that place.
I admire your mentioning of the mirror neurons, because sometimes people think that the law of attraction, the way that we communicate and influence others without us knowing us too well, they may think it's woohoo, but it's actually pure science, as you said. And since you have quite a background with psychotherapy, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about doubt? Is it related to fear, or is it something else?
I mean, that's a loaded question. I think yes and no, right? Like, is there an aspect of doubt that's related to fear? Absolutely. I also think that there's an aspect of doubt that's related to a cultural conditioning. A cultural conditioning, even like from the perspective of the nervous system, something that says we're supposed to fit in, something that says we're not supposed to make waves, we're not supposed to be different. We're not supposed, there's a saying, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but like one of the fears is being the tallest poppy. The tall poppy is always the one that gets cut down. So the moment there's a fear around expansion, a fear around getting big, because for most of us, being different, being bigger than those around us, having the guts to claim that certainty, to claim that confidence, because the opposite of that would be confidence. It would be a sort of certainty, a sort of conviction. Like the opposite of doubt is conviction. It's not fearless particularly. It's just being, because I know people who still have fear about going live or fear about getting visible, but they have such conviction about what they do that conviction helps them move through the fear. And so for me, doubt is a conditioning. It's something that we've been trained, and that nervous system is wired that to keep us safe, it's better to stay small. And doubt is something in us that tells us maybe we're not good enough. Maybe we're not worthy. Maybe we're too small to be this big, to have this big of a vision, to have this big of an impact, even though something in us tells us that we are here for more than this, that we're here for something big, that we're here to change the world, that we're here to be way weavers in some ways. And so I don't know if that answered your question. Yes, there's an aspect of doubt that's fear, but I think there's a big aspect of doubt that's also conditioning, and it's wired into our nervous system to keep us safe, to keep us small, to keep us silent so that we stay safe.
This is a brilliant answer, Ilsa. I did not know about the tall poppy and it being cut the first. It makes so much sense. And now I want to ask you something that just came to me as you were saying that there is conviction and then there's doubt and then there's fear. Would you say that our natural state as human beings is to be fully self-confident, then society comes and takes over, then we forget about this amazing aspect of ourselves? How would you say that this works, and how can we break through this awful pattern that gets us to have miserable lives until we realize that, hey, I have something unique to put out there?
Yeah, I think naturally, and I don't know that that's true for every single person, but even like I think of myself. So I'm actually a pretty introverted, quiet human. Could spend hours as a child by myself with the dog, walking through the garden and doing things, and I was perfectly happy. That being said, I was also fierce. I was also a little shit. I spoke my mind. I felt like I had the right to want what I wanted. And if you look at small children, they have no qualms about their needs. They have no qualms about wanting what they want. And for most of us, we get punished or we get disappointed. Like that's kind of what happens. We either get squashed a little bit because we're too much, we're too big, we're too loud, we're too needy, or we ask, we want, and it either doesn't happen, like our parents will say yes, maybe later, and then it doesn't happen, or we don't have money for this, or whatever it may be. And so I do think that there's a conditioning that happens, not out of meanness for most of us. I think our parents do the best they can with what they've got. But there is a conditioning that essentially gets wired into us, that either we don't deserve what we want, or that that if we ask it, we're going to get disappointed. We're either going to get shot down or we're going to get disappointed. You know, I'm going to give you a personal example. When I was a kid in France, it was in fashion to have these big Nikes sneakers. All the kids had these big high-rise Nike sneakers, and I wanted them so much. And so I asked for those sneakers for Christmas. And my mom decided to get me the sneakers I wanted, except she got what in France would be the Walmart brand. And interestingly enough, we could have afforded the higher price brand, but I think my mom just thought, you know, she's going to outgrow these shoes or dirty them like right away. Why spend, you know, $100 on shoes for a child? But then I was forced to wear them because my mom wanted to see that I appreciated the gift that they got me, and I got made fun of tremendously at school. And so there was a couple things that arose for me there. One of them was the sense of, I'm not worthy to have nice things. You know, like I don't get to have the nice thing. I get to have the subpar thing. And then when I ask something, I don't get what I want and I get disappointed. And so that is a very common nervous system wound of essentially, it's not safe to ask and it's not safe to want. And so that becomes part of the conditioning of bringing us into contraction, bringing us into self-doubt. Who are we to want? Who are we to be this big? Who are we to have big desires? Who are we to ask to be paid well for our gifts? Who are we to claim our expertise? Like that's a big thing I work with the people I work with, is claiming our conviction, claiming our brilliance, claiming that we have something to offer the world that nobody else has, and really being able to step into sovereignty around that, because we can't do the work we need to do to bring the world out, to bring the work out into the world, if we can't claim that. So yes, I think that we are naturally courageous. We are naturally fearless. We are naturally certain of our own worthiness and our own deservingness. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm using it anyways, of getting what we want and having our own needs. And very quickly, early on, it becomes clear that it's not safe to want what we want, or to ask what we have, or that the world doesn't feel like we might deserve it. And so we start contracting around that.
What a great answer. This explains so much. Just look at how many limiting beliefs as a kid you got from just one experience when...
One experience with sneakers, of all things.
Yeah, and you would say when you grow up, well, maybe it's not such a big deal, but deep down, our subconscious mind did see it.
Correct.
As a huge thing. And it's so much work that we as adults need to do to get everything out. And then let's be very thankful for starting businesses where we literally, in a way, we just have to deal with it all. And this is only at the end of the day to our benefit, because getting everything out just gets us to be happier and more fulfilled and more satisfied with our lives as each day goes by. And Ilsa, since I mentioned happiness and you also mentioned it, what do you think would be the first step for someone that is at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey to not get into burnout, but to learn how to create a lifestyle? So build a lifestyle, not a business. What would you say that your number one advice is?
I mean, there's philosophical aspect to that, and then there's the practical, right? Like, from a philosophical basis, I always, like, I measure the success of my business on joy and ease, and partially, and freedom to some degree, partially because that's what I went into business for. And so I always tell my clients, why did you start your own business? And whatever these 3 to 5 things that are at the core of what you want, they're not just a destination, they are what you need to focus on through the whole journey. So for me, if ease, freedom, and joy, and service to some degree were the 4 main things. And I also tell people, especially, I don't know if your audience is mainly women, but I work with both, but I work with a lot of women, and I work with a lot of soulful, spiritually inclined women. And so a lot of us are conditioned to put all our focus on others and to be all about service. And so one of the first thing about making your business, like making sure that wholeness and happiness is an integral part of your success, is to actually build your business for you first, and to be careful of this trap of wanting everything to be about others and about service to others. And the reason I say that is not because I want to create like a whole group of self-centered jerks, but it's because for most of us, if our initial movement is service, that will always be here. What we will do is we will forget ourselves in the process. That's what's not natural to us. Serving others, making sure that others are benefiting, that we're transforming lives. Like, we're wired that way. We're wired to always look to make sure how others are reacting to us and making sure that their needs are met. But we're not wired to take care of us. And the bottom line is, we are the common denominator of every experience we will have. Without you, your business doesn't exist. So you have to be at the core, at the foundation of your business. If not, it won't be sustainable long term. You'll quit, you'll hate it, you'll get sick, you won't get the success you need. There's a lot of nervous system there about actually attracting money and attracting clients. When it doesn't feel good, it's actually really hard to do because everything feels too much. So we won't actually really be open to receive. So that's the philosophical thing. The philosophical aspect for me is making sure that whatever you chose, whatever reason you had, whatever vision you had for why you wanted to be in business for yourself, that you make sure that that becomes a thread throughout your business and that you do not forget yourself, that you actually give yourself full permission to make yourself a fundamental aspect of your business and of success in your business.
Thank you for saying this. I'm so grateful that we need to put ourselves first. It does not work any other way. As the mundane example with when you're in the airplane, you need to put your own oxygen mask first, without a doubt. If you're burnout, if you're unhappy, and when you put others first, it'll be really difficult for you to keep congruent with your heart, with your spirit, with all of the tasks that may be really challenging, especially at first. It gets such an awful life when you just forget your why, forget who you are in the process. Many people think that, no, it does not need to be about me, but I think it's not called personal branding by coincidence. You need to be really true to who you are so that you can get the right tribe, the ones that really need what you offer. Definitely. Thank you for saying that. And I am in awe every time that I see your live sessions, and you have so much power when you teach people to be true to their hearts, to be true to who they are. And I wanted to ask you, Ilsa, do you have a special technique that you use when you feel fear? How do you deal with fear?
Yeah, so that would touch a little bit on the more strategic aspect of your last question, right? Like how do we make happiness and wholeness an integral part of success? And for me, that has a lot to do with the nervous system. So when I feel fear, and it could be fear, but it could be other things. It could be doubt, it could be exhaustion, it could be a sense of rejection, being afraid to be rejected, being afraid to be criticized, not feeling safe in some ways. Like fear is essentially not feeling safe to receive, not feeling safe to be self-expressed. That happens. Yes, we have thoughts with that, but that happens a lot in the body. So you can have all the right thoughts. If there's a contraction in your system, in your nervous system, then your ability to move forward is going to be diminished significantly. Your ability to bring in money, your ability to get visible, your ability to actually execute the strategies, which was one of the reasons why I did the marrying of both. I'm a strategist. I love to talk about strategy. I love to help people with their message, with their marketing. But what I realize is that it doesn't work if somebody is in fear, is in contraction, then they're not actually going to be able to execute the strategy in the right way. And so they're not going to get results. And then that's going to reinforce the fear. Then people really believe no one wants their stuff. Then people really believe no one wants to pay them. But that's actually not what's going on. It's just that their nervous system is in contraction. And so they're literally sabotaging or blocking the process. Their energy is off, their rhythm is off, and it's just not happening because of that. So one of my favorites, and I have a few, but one of my favorite strategy is a practice I essentially put together over 15 years of being a therapist that I call hatching. And hatching is a nervous system, like the way I look at the nervous system, it goes from contraction to regulation, to relaxation, and then to expansion. And so hatching, almost like the hatching of a baby bird, we're coming out of our shell, so to speak, literally takes people through that process. We meet the contraction, then we learn to regulate and start feeling safe. Then we learn to relax our system. And then we learn to go into expansion. And expansion could be like, let's say somebody is afraid of being visible. They have a fear of being seen. So expansion is I would have them start sensing into being seen and expanding their nervous system to increase their capacity to be seen. When you go into expansion, automatically your nervous system goes back into contraction because we are not wired to expand. We're wired to stay safe. And so what we have to do is we literally have to go into higher and higher level of expansion. And I work on a lot of different things with that. Like visibility is one, money is another one, like feeling safe to bring in money and to ask for money and to hold money. Ease is another one. Like most of us are wired that good things only happen when we work hard. And so we're actually feel more comfortable with hard work than we feel comfortable with ease. Like if things are too easy, something feels weird. Like we're almost waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like our nervous system literally contracts around ease or pleasure or joy or asking for support and being supported. So hatching essentially allows people to expand to higher and higher level of receiving and to learn to regulate their nervous system in that expansion so that they don't shut back down.
Wow.
So the first thing I would say is learn to regulate. Like learn to notice, when are you in contraction? Like be aware, what does contraction feel like? What does fear feel like? What does your nervous system being out of regulation feel like? And then the first step is always to breathe and to start learning to feel safe again so that you can come back into at least some degree of openness and some degree of relaxation. And then never move in your business or in your own life from a place of contraction. Because like I said, cats give birth to cats and not dogs. So if you move from contraction, what you create is more contraction usually, even like in a conversation with your spouse. Like if you're in contraction and you try to have a conversation from contraction, usually that leads to more contraction. Your partner will not receive you correctly. They'll say something that actually makes you feel even more contracted, and just shit starts to spiral down.
Wow. I'm loving this. And you are so right, because fear is a vicious cycle. You get one thought, and then you have a few more, two or three, four. I think we are the best at building the most dramatic Hollywood movie scenarios, right? Because it's how the human mind is. It just builds one fear on top of the other. And then you envision things that at one point you think, I need to stop this. I need to be mindful and observe. I love this advice that you give to our audience. And this has been beyond revelatory and so inspiring, Ilsa. Thank you so much for joining us. And before you go, can you please tell us, where can we find you? Where can we see your work? Because I know that everyone will want to get in touch with you today.
So I have a little bit of an Instagram account, but it's actually new. Although there's quite a few posts already on there. I don't know, like maybe 100 posts or something in there. But I mostly play on Facebook. And the easiest, and I don't know if you have the availability to do that, but the easiest to just put my name, Ilsa Comte Adair, in Facebook and send me a friend request. I work mainly from my personal profile. I do live videos and live trainings almost every week. I post a few times a week, and I usually do a mix of nervous system expansion work in there and strategy, and how the two combined to create a really successful life that is based on happiness, on wholeness, and essentially grow a business from this place of alignment. So yeah, probably Facebook is the best way to reach out to me, to get to see a little bit about my work. And, you know, feel free to DM me. I'm super approachable. I love to chat with people. So feel free to connect with me if anything today felt alive for you.
Wonderful, Ilsa. So our fearless friends, get in touch with Ilsa on Facebook. Just type in Ilsa Comte Adair. That's Ilsa, COMTE Adair. Okay, you are going to see everything in the description of our live sessions on Spotify. Make sure you have a chat with her because this wonderful woman has so much wisdom to share. I know we have only scratched the surface today. I'm so grateful for your time. Ilsa, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.